The dawn of civilization. Primitive. Dangerous. Exciting. The handwriting is on the wall. If the human race is ever going to amount to anything, it needs
the most civilized caveman I have ever seen.
Look who's come out of his cave.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is James from Cave Dweller Music. I'm here with my co-host Brendan, and today we have Mark Jackson from the Metal Forge. Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely, man. Thank you all for having me.
Of course. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about who you are, what the Metal Forge is and all that?
Yeah, sure. So in 2019, I put out, actually it was the very end of 2018, I should say. I had a local radio station here in Louisville, Kentucky, who they had lost their metal DJ. So I totally just sent them an email and said, hey, I see that you have an opening for a metal show. I would love to do this. They gave me an on-air interview to like a job interview and to see if I would work out. And ever since January 3rd was the first official episode of the Metal Forge of 2019, and we've been rolling ever since.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. But we primarily focused on, that first year, because it was a nonprofit, low power FM radio station. They had bylaws written in to where everybody that they played on the station had to be from Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
And just a very, just in the listener base in Southern Indiana where they could read. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to say that my hands were tied because I was able to learn a craft there and be able to do what I did. And once the station shut down at the end of 2019, and I kind of sat around for 2 weeks into 2020, and I said, I really have to get this. I've got a brand here, and I want to keep something going on. So I converted it to a podcast, and here we are today.
That's awesome. And you were telling me that you primarily focus on underground stuff, right?
Very much. There have been some higher profile guests, but even with these higher profile people that have come on, Lips from Anvil, Tony Demolition Man Dolan from Venom Inc. have been on the show. They're still primarily, everybody knows who Anvil is and everybody knows who Venom is, but even in the idea of they're not a Metallica, they're not a Judas Priest,
right.
They're not selling hundreds of millions of copies of albums in their career.
Right.
So I still view them as underground.
Yeah, it makes total sense. We actually had this conversation with a guest really recently about perceptions within metal of who we consider to be a big name in the grand scheme of the music industry is not.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's something within the scene. Even the bands you think of as, man, those guys are legends. It's like if you talk to the average person on the street, they'll have no idea who they are.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And that's what's so interesting about, quote, I'm doing the air quote thing here, popular music. Because, just because somebody knows of somebody, just because, 500 million people know who Metallica are, doesn't mean that, the rest of the 7 billion people in the world don't.
Yeah, exactly.
So everything is relative, I think, is what that means.
Definitely. 100%. Yeah. And I think because this was the conversation that we had this in was from the perspective of people feel weird about approaching people in these big name metal bands because they think, man, they're not going to have time for me. They're this big celebrity. And these dudes, yes, they're a big name within the scene, but they're still down to earth people. They're not like some out of touch rock star god. So yeah, I think people need to adjust their perception of who these people are and be like, you can approach these people. You can talk to these people about working with these people. So yeah, I don't know what your perspective is on that, but that's our view of it, at least.
Honestly, my perception of that is I would love to be able to approach somebody and don't get me wrong, I'll circle back to this in a second. I would love to be able to approach somebody like Rob Halford or Bruce Dickinson some, Steve Harris, necessarily a spokesperson for a major band like that.
Right.
Even if any member of Metallica, I would love to have that that availability. But everything now, it's so interesting because like used to be able to get in touch with these people by fan clubs, and they published management and things like that in their albums and on their websites. A lot of that has went away to where if you don't know who the management company is of a certain band, then it's hard to even get in contact with them. Now, what I do think is really cool is there are some people out there that, those, like I said, relative underground bands like the Venom Inc. and, bands like that have Facebook accounts and they're just total down to earth people, like you said, who will reply to messages. I got a message back from Mark Oswego the other day from Death Angel, and I was like, wow, dude, thank you. And it was like almost instantaneous. And I was like, thank you so much for replying to me, because, it is actually a very hard get sometimes to even reach people.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, we understand that. I mean, because the person we were talking about specifically for this context, just so you understand, it was Dan Swanner. I mean, the man within the death metal scene is like an absolute legend, but outside of that, no one knows who he is. And he's actually, because he does a lot of mixing and mastering, people think, oh, well, there's no way I can afford Dan Swanner. He's a legend, but apparently he's super reasonably priced and happy to work with unknown bands. So, yeah, super cool of him.
Definitely. I believe Cameron Webb is that way too. He produced quite a few of the later era Motorhead albums, like the 2000 and past albums. He produced, I think, at least 3, maybe 4. I'd have to fact check it here, but yeah. And apparently, he's one of the same ways where he's just like a super approachable guy,
right?
And is reasonably priced. And actually, from what I've been told, he actually he likes to get involved, honestly, because it's a thing for music for him.
Right. I've heard that Joel Grind from Toxic Holocaust is like that too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've heard that as well. Actually, believe it or not, here recently I had a band on the Metal Forge called Belushi Speedball. They were a couple weeks back. And if I'm not mistaken, Joel Grind had actually done some mixing on, it was actually mastered by Joel Grind, their latest album, which is called, I can't remember the name of the album. It's they don't have it listed on the front either. Here I'm super prepared, but it was mastered by Joel Grind. So
that's kind of funny because we actually had a band on about a month ago that was mastered by Joel Grind as well, which was Grave Ripper. I don't know if you know them.
Absolutely, I know Grave Ripper. I love those guys. Corey,
they're awesome. Yeah, we had Corey on, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I've had Corey on the Metal Forge. He is a absolute sweetheart. He is fun to talk to. He is an interesting person. He's a ridiculously great multi-instrumentalist.
Yeah, definitely. And he was one of the most enjoyable guests we've had. Just a super easygoing, funny, cool dude.
Yeah, man.
Oh, definitely. I actually got to see one of their first shows back last year it's at a club called Black Circle Brewing, or it was Black Circle Brewing at the time. I think it's just called Black Circle now, in Indianapolis, Indiana. And it was so rad. It was an outside show. There was like 9 bands. So it was right in my market for all day festival. It's like 9 bands. Doesn't have to go crazy. You don't have to have 47 bands over 3 days. And I just really appreciate, stuff like that.
Right. That sounds like a great setup.
Oh, definitely was.
And we were actually referred to you, or you actually referred to us to reach out by Howolf of Black Knife.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Love him. He is such a great dude as well. He is such a cool person because he he eats, sleeps, and breathes metal and the music scene. Whether it's the Lexington scene where they're at, or if it's Louisville where I am, or even if it's Pittsburgh, he does everything he can to help build the underground independent metal community.
Right. And I know he's super into the DIY side of it as well, like screen printing and all that old school type of stuff as well, which is awesome. Love to see that.
Oh, for sure. That's one of my favorite. There's a film called American Hardcore. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I know.
But Henry Rollins talks about the DIY side of things in that, and where they used to take like their parents' like ABBA records, the 12-inch record and everything, and they would take the jackets apart and then draw it out on a piece of paper and take it to a Kinko's and have it copied. So they had like a template, so they knew how everything folded together, and they just glued all their own stuff.
Wow.
And it's
That's
like
awesome.
super DIY, and it's like I can see Hellwolf doing that too.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, this is really cool.
So you mentioned earlier as well that you have your own band. What was tell us a little bit about your band.
Yeah, Overload is, it's the thing that I've been in essentially the longest at this point. And I say the longest because we started in 2007.
Okay.
And, we did a few shows, and then we changed a guitar player and had, like a year and a half off. We played some shows with that guitar player and changed the guitar player. You're going to notice a trend here. But, in the grand scheme of things, we've had 7 guitar players.
Wow.
And 3 drummers. And I say 3 drummers because the current guitar player was a drummer for Overload.
Okay.
And the current drummer was a guitar player for Overload. So, but we released our first full-length album in 2011 in June. And one of our guitar players quit on the exact day of the release show. So we did not get to play an album release because he quit. The following 3 years, we released an album each year. Which is, the first album was called Overload by Overload. Second was Blood for Blood. Third was Pantheon. Fourth is Only the Strong Survive. And then in 2015, we recorded the Unvanquished EP. And from that point, the second drummer of Overload, which is now, again, the current drummer, he had a foot issue, and we had to take a year off because he had broken his foot, and just getting back into the swing of things. And in that amount of time, we had replaced him, and he had went to play guitar for the band.
Okay.
And by the way, his name is Mike Taylor. So shout outs to Mike. I love him. I've known him a long time. Such a rad dude. And he has actually recorded, mixed, and mastered all of the releases from Overload.
Okay.
Sweet.
Awesome.
And then in 2019, we released our 6th release, which was an EP called Tales from Twin Earth. And within the next few months, we are getting back together to write and record a new EP that's supposed to be out in early 2023.
Fantastic. Yeah, looking forward to that. I'm gonna definitely check you guys out straight after this. Looking forward to hearing it.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll go ahead and give everybody the link. It's officialoverload.com, or you can go to officialoverload.bandcamp.com. You can find anything on there. We have released a few cover singles that, they're free with, I believe, there's like some merch on there that they might be free with a purchase, but I don't believe they're for sale on the site because, cover songs are kind of weird that way. We did do a cover of Ace of Spades by Motorhead because we are a power trio, so it all works out. And a cover of Paranoid by Black Sabbath.
Awesome. Love it.
Definitely.
So-
It's fun because like the evolution of the band, I have people telling me now more than ever, anytime we play, is like, man, this is the greatest I've ever seen you guys. And that feels good.
I mean, that's what you want to hear. That's what every musician wants to hear, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there was a singer that we had that not Overload, but in a previous band I was in. That was funny because I broke the bad news to him that no one liked him on accident because nobody had ever told him, and it was just like, man, what were people saying after the show? I was like, well, it's the same thing they always say. Well, what's that? Great music, but the vocals suck. And no one in the band had ever told him that, and he didn't last much longer after that, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I don't know.
I think fortunately for him, fortunately for you, not fortunately for him.
Exactly.
I mean, it is what it is. It's tough in those situations, but you have, if you as a band want to progress, you have to make those sort of decisions. I mean, there's been a bunch of bands that were fantastic. Like, if you look at, okay, I'm not going to say this because I shouldn't say this. If you look at Iron Maiden, because some people will disagree with this, but Iron Maiden, when they changed to Bruce Dickinson, that's when they really opened up their career. And yes, there is a charm to the original albums, but I don't think they ever could have gone as far without Bruce Dickinson as they have.
That's respectable, and that is a very valid opinion, and I mostly agree with that because there are some gems, and there is something in those first two albums, piano. And I will also say this too: there are good things about the Blaze Bayley years as well.
Yes,
they're nowhere near hit oriented as with Bruce,
right?
But I also think Bruce is captivating. Not saying that Paul Di'Anno isn't, or Blaze Bayley isn't. However, Bruce is the show.
Right.
You see him running around on stage. Everything, they're firing on all cylinders. That band with Bruce.
Definitely. And when I said that before, success-wise, I don't mean like artistic success. I just mean commercial popularity style success, because I think that he's the one that brought that, like you said, the energy to it.
Oh, for sure. And, what he sang for Samson before that, is that correct? And, I don't think necessarily Samson would have done much of anything if he would have stayed either.
Right. Yeah. People will find their groove, It's like, everyone sort of has their place that they're meant to be, and they may be really good in a role, but they're not where they're meant to be shining until they find that slot.
Or if someone happens to die, in the band, and then they want to progress, and they gotta give it some time and replace somebody, that way. That's
always tough. It's like with Black Dahlia Murder, how they've decided to move forward. I actually thought was a pretty tasteful decision.
Yeah.
Very much. I will agree with that.
Yeah. A cool local band here, Afghan Haze, lost their drummer, and they just announced today they got a new one. Which is cool. Yeah.
They found someone.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to members, and not just in death or anything like that, or just having to, nothing to the extreme of having to quit due to health issues, stuff like that, Clive Burr had to do, and John Rutsey had to do, for Rush and Maiden respectively. And it's to me, I got a copy when I was 24 years old, which is about the same time I started Overload. And the idea of this became a deal where I wanted to do a Motorhead tribute band where you played about 40 minutes. And, we would call it the Road Crew.
Nice.
After the song, of course. And so I was talking with the first drummer of Overload. And we had talked about it, and we just never brought it to fruition that way. And said to me, he's like, I've been jamming with this guy, Chuck. Why don't you come down? And I already had another guitar player in mind also. And he goes, why don't you come down, jam with us, and see what you want to do? If you want to come in and do vocals and bass, that would be awesome. So I came down. I was liking it. That's exactly what we did. And so with all of the member changes, the point of this is I picked up a copy of Another Perfect Day, and it was a re-released issue of it. And it was, there was a note in there where Lemmy was talking about where Fast Eddie Clark had left after Iron Fist. Mm-hmm. And he was 38 years old when that happened. And he was to the point where he was ready to just call it quits and start over. And then he realized, I'm 38 years old. I'm too old to start over. We're just going to replace it. And at that point in time, me being 24, I adopted that mentality. And I said, I'm too old to start over with this. This is, this is going to be something I'm going to be invested in. And this is going to be something that I'm going to do until I can't do any longer. Whether if it's, writing stuff by myself or, I have a multitude of guitar players that come through, a multitude of drummers that come through, whatever. And I'm glad and I'm extremely happy and glad for the current lineup of Overload. But yeah, I'm too old to start over.
I mean, it's interesting perspective because I agree and disagree with that. We've had some people on the show who, some of them only started their music career in their 40s, and maybe they may not make it potentially as big because they've started so late. It takes time to build that, but I don't think it's ever too late to start something completely new.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. They were like, you know what? Let's just do it. Why not? You know what I mean?
Right. I could see that. I mean, and I applaud people who can actually just do that. But for me, it's like, I'm just that guy, I guess.
No, I completely understand where you're coming from as well, because I'd probably be the same way. But there are some people that just push past it, I guess.
Definitely.
So I wanted to ask you, because you've been obviously in the scene for so long and listening to music for so long, what started your journey into heavy and alternative music?
Wow. I don't get that question often, but I have told this story. Like not on any public forum like this, but somebody else, a few years ago asked me that. My mom always wanted to play guitar. She used to sing when she was in like high school and stuff like that for church choir and all of that stuff, right? And so when I was about 10 to 12 years old, somewhere in that time period, she bought a guitar. Just, an old beat up acoustic guitar from a person she worked with. And he was going to give her lessons, right? Well, it never really took or anything like that. So we just had this guitar sitting around the house. And I vividly remember going to a show with a friend. It was the sibling. Let me think how to word this. It was my sister's best friend's brother.
Okay.
and it's almost like the Spaceballs thing there. It's like your brother, sister's cousin's uncle's roommate. Yeah. So when he had started singing for a band, and he was 2 years older than me. So he was like 14 at the time. And, he had to have a ride there and everything. And I don't know how he met the guys that he had met to play music, because they lived like 40 miles apart. But I ended up going to a few shows. And from that point on, that's when I realized it's like, wow, this is really something cool. And then that following like November, all of the guys that like the crew, the people you grow up with, with from like elementary school on, right? We all got together at lunch. We were like, what are you guys asking for Christmas? And somebody said, I'm asking my parents for a guitar. And I was like, wow, you can do that? And that's when we realized, like, you know, let's put together a band. Everybody ask your parents for an instrument or something so we can all, start a band. And, so that's what we did. It's like, well, what do you want to play? We went to the first person. He's like, I want to play guitar. It's like, what do you want to play? It's like, well, I want to play guitar. Third person gets in there. What do you want to play? I want to play guitar. It's like, holy crap, man. It's like 3 guitar players right there. We're Leonard Skinner. No. The next guy sitting at the table was me. I got asked, it's like, what do you want to play? It's like, I want to play bass. Because at that point in time, I knew the difference because of bass and guitar. There was a actual awareness of it because of seeing shows from like being like 11 and 12 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's pretty much all history because, at that point when I actually started learning how to play an instrument, I stopped playing in a band since 1995. I have only not played in a band setting of some type for 9 months.
Wow. Consistency.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So like there's always been, and that's because I quit a band and was just like burnt. And that was, and actually that was in 2006.
Okay.
So it's been a while.
So that's what inspired you to play music. So who would you say music-wise is your biggest influence as far as, I mean, it doesn't have to be one person, but like a couple of people who you say influence you.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, what was that?
Who was your favorite bassist?
Well, that's interesting because I can't just choose one.
You can do top 5 if you want.
Exactly. This is, High Fidelity's top 5 bassists, according to Mark. I would like to say these are in no particular order, but they kind of are. Dusty Hill is number 5, I would say. Dusty has an amazing groove, just that pinch that he's in the pocket. He's where he needs to be. Sweet. Rest in power, Dusty.
Yes, sir.
Geddy Lee would be in I would say in at number 4. Like I said, this is a hard list to actually rank, so I'm just going to give you the people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So yeah, Geddy Lee, obviously, because like he is a machine. Just as much as every member of Rush is a machine, Geddy is no different. He, playing the synth with his feet, playing bass with his feet, depending on the song, etc. It's insane. Number 3, Chris Squire, for the same reasons, because he is there, he is doing what he's doing, and I don't play like either Geddy or Chris Squire, but I respect what they do and just the sheer like craziness that they can just sit there and throw down like they do. Number 2 would be Jason Newsted.
Okay.
And I would say Jason because when I really got into Metallica, I heard Justice first, but it was like this new sound. It was like, oh my gosh, what is this? And it was insane, right? But my sister got a copy of the Black Album. And, just in repetitive listening to that, it's how it kind of, it took over everything. So, like, going in and rewatching and learning how Jason plays his instrument, where he's just got this really heavy right hand when he plays. That to me speaks to how I play as well. And obviously, for anyone who knows me personally, and anybody, who just has been listening to this episode, I've mentioned him a couple of times already. Number one would be Lemmy. Because, he's a complete badass, for one. Was a complete badass, for one. And just like his writing ability. Just not only just his bass playing, because that swing that he has in his picking hand, and he plays it like it's he plays it as a rhythm instrument, and whether it's playing it like a rhythm instrument like Geddy or Chris Squire, he still does some of those same things in there. It's just with distortion and a pick. And I'm not even going to get into his just his lyric writing ability,
right?
Because that's on a whole other world.
Definitely. And okay, so what are your thoughts on bands that there's more of these days that don't have a guitarist and are led by a bass player and a drummer? Do you think that? I mean, are you a fan of that type of style? Or
I'm actually not too familiar with really any bands that do that.
Okay.
It's quite frankly, quite frankly, for me, what I've noticed here, it's the other way around. Especially like with some of the bands here, like in Indiana, is Throne of Iron has no bass player, and they have two guitar players and a drummer and a vocalist. Well, Tucker's the vocalist as well, but it's just, that's interesting to me that people who wouldn't even have a bass player.
Right. I've seen that as well, and it does confuse me. I don't know why you would want to give up such a crucial part of your sound. It adds a whole depth to the music and a groove.
It does. But I think a lot of them are actually switching it over to, just as a track.
Right.
Which that sucks, but, I get it. I'm not going to sit there and not say that there's not some extra bass parts in tracks in Overload music that we've done. I've recorded several different bass lines that get mixed into the master mix on a couple of different things. So I get it. Doesn't make it right, but I get it.
Right. After this, I can send you a couple of bands, because we've stumbled through quite a few with our site who are two like duos who are just bass player and drums.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, and then they just basically play the bass as a guitar. It's
nice.
Really sweet. Yeah, super distorted, very down tuned. It's thick.
I imagine it is. See, that's also really interesting too. If it, being down tuned past like a certain note is like, does it get too clunky like Fieldy from Korn?
Yeah. Or he's like slapping a banjo, maybe.
Yeah.
It's I don't even think it's that. It's like the clothesline outside.
Yeah. It's so distinct. It's so distinctive, though. It's like it's uniquely them. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. And just like with the guitarists in that band, it's uniquely them.
Yeah, definitely.
That band wouldn't work with anybody else, and I think it's proven that it didn't work with anybody else when Head left.
Right.
Because I think that during that time period, they really didn't have much going on.
Right. I'm a huge Korn fan. People give me shit for it sometimes. It's like, oh, new metal, but I genuinely think that they're a consistently interesting band. Like they mix it up constantly. They never stick to one sound or style. I think they experiment a lot, and I applaud them for it.
Well, I'm not dogging on them or nothing by any stretch of the word. I've seen them live more than twice, I would say.
I got to see them live with. They opened with. It was Korn, Kid Rock, System of a Down, and Metallica.
Oh, that was the Summer Sanitarium.
I was like, oh man, it was a while back. That was back in the 2000. 2000, maybe 2001.
Yep. Yeah, that was Summer Sanitarium was when that was. Because the show here that was supposed to be in Kentucky, James was not able to make because he was jet skiing or something and got hurt, and he was in the hospital in traction. So they still had the show, and like Lars, Jason, and Kirk did like Metallica karaoke, and like Kid Rock came out and sang with them. I believe Jonathan Davis came out and sang with them.
That's cool.
Surge came out and sang with, so like they were all taking turns singing Metallica songs with them. So I think that's an interesting thing. And then they rescheduled that because they sold like 80,000 tickets to that show.
Wow.
And they sold, and they came back to an actual, it was an outside deal, of course. And they sold, so the way it worked out is they booked a basketball arena in Lexington, Kentucky, that pretty much they were there for 2 nights and they didn't even get half of the actual audience because of the seats.
Oh, okay.
So it's like you had to really get your tickets redeemed.
Wow.
So yeah, that's always a weird one.
Do you know if there's any videos of that? I'd actually like to see the different vocalists taking turns. That'd be kind of cool.
You know what? I think there actually is, but of course it's all shot on camcorder. Because there's no cell phone video of that.
Oh yeah, I didn't have a cell phone. I just got my oh man, that was fun though back then.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I miss from going to shows is not seeing cell phones up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm guilty sometimes of filming a show. I'll film like a song.
Holy hell, I found it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's if you type in on YouTube Metallica Sparta 2000.
Okay.
It'll actually show up, and it's the first one. It's actually the full show. It says it's an hour and 49 minutes.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to check that out after this.
Creeping Death, Jason on vocals. It actually gives the whole rundown of like who does what.
That's awesome.
That's very cool. I'm going to watch that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I was. I was just like high school when that was going.
Oh yeah, me too. I didn't go to that. I didn't go to that show, but I just got to hear about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. That was a good time. We went at where I think it was the old Pat Stadium, New England Patriots Stadium.
Right. Is that's where you saw it at?
Yeah, I think that's where it was.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was big.
That's so interesting that like people have. This is camcorder video from from 2000. And it's somebody's uploaded it onto YouTube. And that's so crazy to me. It's like, what?
That's awesome, man. It's a piece of history.
Oh, for sure it is.
Props to that person.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, Melonica channel. They're one of the chapters for the 5th member chapters. For like the fan club stuff. Where okay. Yeah, that's who they are. And I believe they're out of Milan is where they're based out of. They have a lot of uploads, I've noticed. They have must be somebody within the camp, honestly, is what I'm thinking here. Because they upload a lot of really weird, rare video stuff.
Oh,
like
okay.
They've even uploaded like demo tracks from like Saint Anger and stuff like that. That's like, can't get it anywhere else.
That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it's wild stuff. I mean, one of these days I hope to have something like that myself. There's like hardly any overload demo tracks, but
a friend of mine just went to Europe and they came back and brought me this shirt. They're like, "Oh, I was at this vintage clothing store and I found this. I don't know if you know this album or something." And it's a shirt, a Metallica shirt of their very first demo. And I can't find a date on it, so I can't see how old it is or when it's from or anything. But I have that now, and I'm just curious if it's if it's rare or something, or I have no idea.
Like the power metal demo.
It's let me get the name.
Oh yeah, I was looking up that tour dates. So yeah, I was at the Foxborough Stadium one, and then the Sparta one you were talking about was literally a few days later, a week later.
Yeah, it's crazy though that that man has went through so much crap, getting I don't know, I know he broke his ankles twice, or he broke his one ankle twice right before they were supposed to go on tour for Master. So when Justice was coming out, they had to re-sign and renegotiate their contract, and Q Prime made them put a clause in the contract where he's not allowed to go skateboarding or anything 6 weeks prior to a tour. So he can't break anything.
Interesting.
Right.
It was the no line.
Tight, buddy. Just hang out, please.
Right. You know what would really be funny is if it's still in the contract today. I would like.
No, that's the one with his wife.
James.
Don't fuck yourself up.
Right. I would like to see 60-year-old James skateboarding.
Have him and Tony Hawk hang out.
Right.
The shirt is No Life Till Leather demo.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's got the white logo where it's the black logo that's surrounded all in white.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that is so awesome. And it's real.
I don't know. That's the thing. I can't tell. It's
because if you look at the video of the Metro Theater with Metallica back in it's in '83. That's I think one of them is wearing the shirt that you're talking about. So they were available then, but I don't think did they ever re-release it though. That's the thing to see,
Right. I need to look into it because I don't it's probably not authentic, but it's older for sure. It's a vintage shirt. So I don't know. It's probably an older bootleg. But I've never seen one of those shirts around. I've never seen that.
Oh no, yeah, you
demo shirt.
You never see them. Okay, so let's see here. So the original one just has the black text with the white background on it, it's been cut out. And but that's really all that I'm seeing. Now there is a re-release where it's got a cassette tape on there.
Oh, that's the one. That's the one I have. That's a re-release? Yes. When was that released? Does it say?
You know what? Hang on. Actually, no. That's not a re-release. Here's one dated back on eBay to 1982.
Oh, damn. Okay. So maybe it is legit.
That may actually be. Now, okay, so the re-release does not have the tape on it. It has the same logo, and it says No Life Till Leather right under it.
The one I have has the tape.
Oh, cool.
There you go.
See, that's rad, See, that's one of the good things about the internet these days. There's a plus there for sure. Which I actually have I have 2 copies of the re-release tape that they did in 2013.
Okay.
Which is really cool because it's not remastered. It's not anything. It's how it actually was on the actual tape.
Very cool.
It's straight up one side, just there it is. Now there was an actual demo before. It was before that too.
Okay. Were they called Metallica still for that demo, or did they go by a different name?
Yes, they were. You know what? Let me check that really fast because it's called Power Metal is what it is, and it looks like they took like a Boris Vallejo art piece from it, and it's a 3-song demo. Let's see. It says Power Metal is the name given to a demo recorded in sometime of April of '82. Although it's never been officially released, it was given the bootleg name Power Metal after the tagline Ron McGovney printed on Metallica's first business cards.
Okay. I'm seeing 2 different album covers. There's like a dragon, and then there's one with like a
guy
a
wrapped in
monster.
a snake.
Yeah, a guy in the snake.
Yep. That's the one that I've always seen.
Okay. I didn't know about this. I have to listen to this.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it's the same version of Hit the Lights that is on the Metal Massacre.
Okay.
So it's actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's also 3-person Metallica. So it's Lars, Ron, and James.
Okay, interesting.
Is what I'm thinking. That's who's on there.
Interesting.
Interesting stuff all around it. Oh, actually, it does say Dave is on there. Okay. Cool. Because it actually has the mechanics.
What are your thoughts on the new Metallica? I mean, Megadeth album, actually. Yeah, on that topic.
I am a bad listener. I have not listened. I've only listened to the one song that they put out.
A single
like a couple months ago. I am a completionist, so I will buy it. And on the Metal Forge, we have 2 sets of album reviewers. We've got Athena, who does Metal Mischief, and that's her segment. And we have Jason Gardner, who does the Heavy Metal Wasteland. Last week's episode contained a Heavy Metal Wasteland about Mega Dave. And
love that.
Right. And he's talking about it. He's, I'm so spent on political metal.
Right.
And I mean, let's face it, that has been Dave's entire career. Like, there's some things that aren't, political about it. Like, Tulamon is not, but like, cryptic writings, there's all kinds of different things that aren't, but in the grand scheme of things, he is very much a politically driven, that's what he, from Peace Cells, on. It's always, Hangar 18. It's always there's a political underlying, bitch fest going on there. And I get it, and that it has its place, but I just kind of get tired of it. It's like, I know that stuff sucks. I don't need to be reminded in the stuff that's supposed to make me feel better that stuff sucks.
Right.
But he used to just be in the music, but it's really bled more into him as a person now as well. The last few years, like maybe the last decade, he's really.
Oh, I have some strong opinions on it, so I definitely know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I honestly think he has a holier than thou attitude.
Oh,
I understand he has went through so much in his life. I get that. We all go through a lot of things in our life, but like, we're all just people.
Right. There's definitely a few people in the industry who not to like trash anyone. I'm not going to say any names, but there's definitely those people who have that attitude in the scene.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that holier than thou attitude, and it's like I don't get that. It's one thing that being an independent musician, and being in a band that only here recently, within the last like 7 years, has started to garner some bit of, popularity.
Mm.
So being around for 15 years now, and saying that after only the last 6 have the following really started kicking in with it. It's 9 years of being like, what the hell are you doing? And
Right.
but I mean, still, it's perseverance. But like, I just don't get it. It's like, I don't know if I've just went through this crazy thing over the last few years where it's like, I've really started to be more humble about things. And it's like, and less of a dick, because I've been a dick, and being a dick don't always work. Not always. But, I just can't, that's why I ask on the Metal Forge, I do break into, I keep half of an interview scheduled for just, the dirt, the nitty gritty, what is your project? What is your band? What do you do? How do you do it? What's coming up next? How are you how are you revolutionizing your band?
Right.
Your little corner of independent metal or punk, or because I do the same thing, and we brush up with a lot of different things. It's not just all metal. We do punk. We do, we do metal. We do all kinds of things. I'm always the one to think that heaviness doesn't always have to be distorted guitars and screaming vocals.
Right.
Waylon Jennings could sing about something heavy. And, so whereas that is, keeping everything on a somewhat lighthearted aspect as well, with that first half being that part of the show. Second half, I just do break out into general questions with people, because we are all people. We are all going through the same struggles. We all don't know, sometimes where our next meal is coming from, if, we're going to have some life-changing event tomorrow.
Right. Sure.
So, knowing the silly stuff like, what's your favorite food, or, what do you do to blow off steam, or, anything like that. What do you collect? That stuff it's important to me. And because it's a humanity issue, I guess.
It's kind of funny you mentioned that, because we actually have the same format. Brendan actually ends out the show with those exact type of questions. So, yeah, we feel the same way.
Yeah, it's funny.
So actually, Brendan, do you want to actually kick into that side of the show then?
We could do that.
On that note,
do you have a favorite podcast?
Oh, other than this one, right?
Yeah.
It just depends. Honestly, it depends on the mood I'm in at the moment. Because I really listen to a few, like very few actual podcasts anymore. I'm a wrestling fan. Okay. I will make the rounds listening to a few different wrestling podcasts, like Jim Cornette's Drive Through, or Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. I will listen to those. Actually, a friend of mine has just recently started podcasting, so I've been trying to catch more episodes of his. It's called If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything, and it's about the paranormal, and he's a distiller, and he talks about the paranormal stuff in that as well, like people who have come on who have like their own distilling practice and everything, and they just have like some weird stuff going on. So that stuff's really cool.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
But I do enjoy like the Night Demon heavy metal podcast as well, for the band Night Demon. I think that's really well done, because it's they get some really cool people on there.
Okay. Right on. Have you had any like big fanboy moments?
I kind of actually did this past weekend, honestly. With I got to see a tour in my city, and it was really cool because, like, it was Entranced, Seven Sisters, and Haunt. If you're familiar with any of those bands,
I know Haunt. They're from Haunt plays around here a lot in San Diego.
yeah, because he's from Fresno. Trevor is
Right.
Yeah.
Super cool dude. And I finally, I had him on my show back in 2020.
Nice.
And from that point, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Beastmaker for sure.
Yes.
And
I was just talking about them today. Great band.
Well, it's interesting. He told a little anecdote on stage over the weekend. And I say over the weekend because I watched them on Saturday in Louisville. And I already had plans to go to Indianapolis, which is 2 hours north, to watch the show the next day.
Nice.
So I got to see all three of the bands that I've been talking to for a few years on like Messenger and through text and stuff like that, and I've never met them in person. And I finally got to meet all of these people in person, and it's like we've known each other our whole lives at this point because we just talked and BS and whatever. So yeah, I kind of had a little bit of a fanboy moment when Trevor started playing, or I said when Haunt started the song "Luminous Eyes," and the little anecdote he told about Beastmaker was about writing "Luminous Eyes" for Haunt, and that was the song that caused them to break up.
Oh.
So it's always interesting, what's going to happen next.
Wait, you said Beastmaker broke up?
Yes.
I didn't know that. I thought, didn't they just release an album in March?
I believe they did, but they're not. They don't tour. They don't do anything like that.
That was a compilation album. I didn't realize that. Okay, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
I love that band. I didn't realize that. But
I will give him a massive shout out because since let's see here. Excuse me for just a second.
No worries. Good. I was gonna say I'm gonna get to meet Tommy Stewart and Patrick from Grave Next Door, and Tommy Stewart from Direwolf, Black Doomba Records.
Nice.
He was in Grim Reaper as well. If you know them from like the old thrash band from the 80s.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was not Halloween. Hallows Eve.
Oh, was it Hallows Eve? It must have been Hallow Eve. Yes, Hallows Eve. That's right.
But
confused.
And then we're gonna get to see. I'm gonna get to see the week after that. Minerva band on his label, so it's pretty cool to do that.
All right, so the first Beastmaker. Well, that says January of 2018. That's not right. They're on here kind of weird. Okay, so from August 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Beastmakers. So August 2015, You Must Sin was released by Beastmaker.
Okay,
on the Bandcamp platform. So what's interesting is like from that point on, there have been 31 releases
that prolific
that Trevor Church has released between the 19 from Beastmaker, and actually it's even more than that because some of these are doubled up, like EP7 and 8, EP9 and 10.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he's had like a crazy amount with, and like Haunt alone has had like 13 or 14 releases,
right?
Since 2015. So it's like insane. It's like, wow. It's like, I wish I could write in as much content as that.
That's crazy. I was actually had tickets to see Haunt when they last played in San Diego, but I had to leave the country to see family back home, so I missed it, unfortunately.
Wow.
But and then I was also meant to see that same trip. I missed seeing Tony Hawk's son's band, Warring.
Okay.
Do you know them at all?
I don't actually.
They're a lot of fun. It's like stoner surf punk stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, if you like fun, like you said, you like a lot of fun music. Yeah, check it out. It's a good time.
Oh, definitely. I'll definitely have to check it out.
Yeah, so I was meant to see them originally, and the whole band got COVID.
Oh.
They rescheduled the day of. They tested positive, and then they rescheduled, and then happened to reschedule it while I was out of the country. So missed this twice.
That's terrible. That's absolutely terrible.
Yep. It happens. There's always those bands that you always just like barely miss somehow.
Right.
That's happened to me so much. I feel like I'm like, all right, I need to go do this and that, and then it's like some, obligation is ahead of it, and I'm like, no, if this was just a day later, please, There
was something there was something like that happened with me where like something got canceled and it got rescheduled for like a Wednesday, and I was like, what? Like, who wants to go to this on a Wednesday?
I know that exact feeling. I mean, I go to Wednesday gigs because I just don't want to miss the band, but it sucks because you have like work the next day and you're like, well, I have to stay sober and go to work the next morning. It's like you can't fully relax and enjoy it compared to like a Friday or a Saturday night or something.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what happened when I saw Primitive. I saw Primitive Man, and that was on like a Wednesday. It was like the cheapest gig I've ever seen. It was like $11 for Primitive Man, Body Void, and Jarhead Fertilizer. I was like, that's insanely. Like, I'm not. There's no way I'm not.
Stacked bill, man.
Yeah, it's like there's no way I'm not going to that. Like,
yeah, that's like a steal.
Yeah, it's like stupid not to go to that.
Definitely.
The band for me, though, that I have always missed every single time something's always come up or they've cancelled or something is Morbid Angel. I've just never managed to see them.
That's funny. They've been being brought up in my life a lot here in the last few days.
Okay.
Well, we were me and a few friends were talking about them, and then I was speaking with Athena about them as well, the Metal Mischief host. Mm-hmm. And it's just interesting because, like, them being an alphabetical release band is always interesting to me.
Yeah,
it's almost the gimmick like Anvil has with Metal on Metal, Strength of Steel, Pound for Pound, Worth the Wait. The alliterative album titles.
Yep.
So, like, doing all the Covenant, Domination, Gateways, Fate. It's like, wow. It's like, imagine like being that person and having to like, okay, well, this one started with A. This one started with B. This one's going to be C. It's like,
but it's
either genius or insane.
I'll say from a fan's perspective, it makes it really easy to know which order they came out in, because you're like, oh, well, obviously this one came out after that because this is F and that's A.
Right. Yeah, and didn't they break that in like 2000 or something? They put out some weird titled album.
Yeah, there was. There's like a obscure one that no one talks about. Where is it? It's
no one talks about it because everyone that I've ever heard talk about it say it sucks.
Oh, but are you talking about? Digital. Are you talking about Illa Divium Insanus, the one that everyone makes fun of that became like a living meme?
Yes.
Yeah, that was 2011, and that one, like, I really have no idea what they were thinking with that one. It was like Marilyn Manson meets like Morbid Angel. It was very strange, and the song titles were just like insanely cheesy. There's one, what's it called? Too Extreme, and then the song's just about how the band is too extreme for you to handle. I was like,
oh gosh, that's like total. That would be something that like Motley Crue would do.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Too extreme for you to handle.
And then they have another one called I Am Morbid, about how morbid the band is too. Same album as Too Extreme. And then the funniest one was Destructo versus the Earth, which is just like,
I see that. Slash attack. So it's like a part one. Justice versus the Earth / attack.
Yeah, so the only time they really broke the alphabetical thing was 91 when they did Abominations of Desolation after Blessed Are the Sick.
But is that like a compilation though?
I think it was like a live album or something like that. I can never remember what this one was about.
Oh no. Abominations of Desolation's the demo album.
Okay, so they re-released. Okay, they re-released the demos, but that technically broke the release order. And then they did
2 live albums, Entangled in Chaos and Juvenilia.
Yeah, and because they went from I to K, but I guess you count one of those. You can count the Juvenilia live album in between for the J. So
right, because it was in 2015.
Yeah.
And the E, Entangled in Chaos, did come out in 96 between Dominations and Formulas Fatal to the Flesh.
Yep. For me personally, Gateways to Annihilation is my favorite album of theirs, which is that's a super contested opinion because some people love the direction they went in with. They changed vocalists at that album. And then some people were like a diehard, like, no, early Morbid Angel's the only Morbid Angel. So.
Well, it's funny because, there's so many people that talk so much crap about it, but there's the sales are only saying that they did like 7,500 copies.
For Gateways to Annihilation? Oh, you're talking about Illa Divinum Insanus?
Yeah. Illa Divinum Insanus, yeah. So many people talk about it. It's like being this horrible album, but they only sold 7,500 copies.
I own a copy of that because I pre-ordered it. And yeah, I own a copy of that. Like a special edition one too.
I don't know. I couldn't do that.
I ordered it and then got there because I only heard the one single. There were like 1 or 2 good singles on it. They were like pretty fun, but then I got it and I put it on. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, what? What is this? This is not Morbid Angel.
Oh, for sure. And they do have some really cool album covers.
They do.
I remember getting Domination on a cassette tape from a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And it was just like the cassette tape artwork. It looked so terrible because of it being full J card, right?
Right.
And so like the pentagram on the cover it's like an oval pentagram.
Oh, really?
But like if you remember like the way Doom looks, like the video game Doom, that's how like the cassette version of that looked. It was like so pixelated and garbage. It looked like the crappy Maze screensaver that Windows 95 used to have.
I got the vinyl, like the limited vinyl re-release recently of this one. And have you seen the album art of that one? It's terrible.
Of what album?
Of that album, Domination.
Oh no, I haven't seen the re-release artwork. Let's see if it doesn't show on Wiki.
It's like busts of people's heads. Here it is. Okay, if you Google the album under images, like Google Images, it's the top left. And just type in like re-release, you'll see it. With like the people, the busts of statues sticking out of the sand. For some reason, nowhere near as cool as the original.
Oh, good lord!
Yeah.
Oh, good lord!
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
I mean, that's not even anywhere close to the same.
No, the original one was super cool, and then that one's like super cringe, and I own that one, unfortunately. So
it's like. The original is like stalactites and like a mushroom cloud looking thing.
With the face above it, like the evil face breathing down smoke.
Yeah. And I guess the re-release is like something off in the distance in the background that no one sees.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why they did that.
I have no idea why. That's insane.
Like, hey, that really cool album cover we have that everyone likes? Let's ruin it and make that a special edition.
That's the whole thing. It's something like that. Let's see. Does it say anything about it?
I think who released it. I have it downstairs, but
there's no one listed as the artist on that either. Not on Wikipedia, anyway. But I mean, it could have been one of those things where it could have had somebody that was in the band, and then when they did the re-release of it, that person was no longer in the band. So and it was like his deal. So
yeah, it could be it.
It could be anything. And they were signed to Earache on that. So
yes, Earache released it. Yes, that's who I got it from. I remember now. It was from Earache's web store. It was a limited release, and I was like,
it could have been an Earache deal because they've changed a lot of their stuff lately too.
Right, that makes sense. Because I got it because it was like some limited edition. I was like, oh sweet, a re-release. I don't own that one, so picked it up, and then I was like, oh man,
craziness.
I just realized we are approaching the end time. Brendan, do you have any more of your fun questions you want to ask before we time out?
Without having to name anybody, what was the most awkward podcast that you had to deal with?
I have one guest per show. That would the most awkward. I like to think that most of the people that I have on are, they're really cool. They're really cool people. And not going off of anything from like a language barrier, like English isn't somebody's first language. Those are always something interesting in their own regard because, when you're speaking broken English with somebody, that's, our slang and stuff like that, you got to be careful because it might mean something else there. Say something a weird way. But honestly, the things that really get to me are like the people who sit there and they will give this crazy, insanely articulate answer to something, and then you will follow it up with a question, and it's like the scene in Wayne's World when Garth is playing the drums, and he just goes nuts behind the drums, and then at like the very next moment he goes, "I like to play." Those are the most awkward moments because it's like, especially doing some stuff over Zoom or the phone like we're doing right now. It's like you can't see me and what I'm doing or anything, and I can't see you guys. So it's like I'm like, come on. It's like we're waiting.
Yeah.
It's like that. But those are the weirdest things because they tend to put a lot of dead air in episodes, and I'm always the one that's like, can't have it, don't want to do it, because there will be times where I will edit episodes and just cutting out dead air can be, 10 to 15 minutes of time.
Yeah.
So those are the most awkward things, not necessarily people in general. And I mean, we're all musicians, musicians are quirky bastards anyways.
Have you ever had anyone who like refused to answer a question? We've had only I think one time. I can't remember who it was or what question it was, but we asked someone a question. They said, "I'm not going to answer that."
Oh, I remember.
Yeah,
but they told us that.
Yeah, they told us afterwards. There was a reason, but
project they were working on.
Yeah, it was a secret project afterwards.
I've had people deny. Yes.
At first, I was like, "Oh, did I offend this guy?"
It seemed like they were offended. Yeah, I remember.
I was like, "Oh boy." Actually, something funny for me. When we first started doing this, I mixed up the Nicholases.
Oh yeah. We had two guys called Nick. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and then I was like, "Oh boy."
Oh wow, yeah. Talk about embarrassing stuff. I called someone whose name is Blair, and I've known them for a while because I was interviewing a band from Louisville. Like I said, I know his name is Blair. I called him Blake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, like, that was a nice edit the next, when I edited the show there. Like, did I just really call him Blake? What's wrong with him? No, I have had people refuse questions, but it's because of contractual obligations of things, like they can't give away album titles yet. They can't give away release dates yet. I have had that happen, but I would say the most awkward refusal that I've ever had is I used to ask and I stopped asking this question on that episode. So if you want to go back and listen to episodes, you'll find out who I'm talking about here. So like I asked, what's your guilty pleasure?
Oh, I used to ask that
in music, and he flat out got agitated about, like it was like gatekeeping.
Right.
And I totally get that. Like, I totally get that now. It's like, are you a Lady Gaga fan? That's the thing. It's like, it's my guilty pleasure. I think Lady Gaga writes really well, and that's a shoot. I think she does write really well. But, hearing what other people have to say about that, but he just like seriously got offended by that question. He's like, people like what they like. Shouldn't, if you like it, it's not a guilty pleasure. So, okay.
Yeah. We've had people say that too, but in a polite, like not in a defensive way. Just like,
I mean, it's more like kind of like, what do you listen to like outside the norm? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Well, for me, it's like, what do you listen to that is objectively trash, but you find it fun and enjoyable? Because I have a lot of those bands, and I'm like, man, this sucks, but I love it.
Wow, that's an interesting question. I don't know if I could answer that one at all. Who do you listen to that's objectively trash, but you don't care?
Exactly.
Motley Crue.
Yeah, that's a solid answer.
Kiss.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Yep.
That's funny. Yeah, I think we're good to wrap it up.
All right, awesome. So before we wrap it up, is there anything that you want to promote on your side? Like any upcoming things from the band, anything with the show you want to push at all?
With Overload, if you guys are, I don't know when this episode's actually going to drop. So October 7th, 8th, and 9th, we're doing a little 3-shot weekend tour. 7th, we're going to be at Blades of Steel 2 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at Club Garibaldi, I believe it's called, playing for Randy Castor up there. Then Saturday night, on the 8th of October, we're going to be in Akron, Ohio at the Empire Concert Club. And then on Sunday, the 9th of October, we're going to be at the Green Lantern in Lexington, Kentucky with Snafu from Detroit.
All right.
Awesome thrash band from up there.
Yeah.
Then with the Metal Forge, Friday's episode on the 23rd of September is our 192nd episode. So we're really close to wrapping up to 200. And I've got some really cool stuff set in mind for 200. I've got some really cool things coming up with special guest spots on the show. So stay tuned for all that. It's every Friday at noon Eastern, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and taking the time. It was really great chatting to you, as we can tell by the fact that we almost clicked into 90 minutes here.
Definitely. I like it.
Yeah. If you ever want to come back on, let us know. We'd love to have you back.
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
Right. And if you ever want to bring any of the other people from your show, just let us know. We can bring them on as well.
Definitely. Yeah. That would be a nice, a cool deal, like a little crossover deal, like Metal Forge and Cave Dweller, like where, you could talk to the same band or something. That'd be awesome.
Definitely. Anyone who's listening, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will have someone else for you next week.